cost was a concern. So that was great testimony there. And somewhat in concluding, I just ask you all to keep an open mind. You're going to hear a lot of testimony today and two very passionate sides of the story. And if I can make myself available at any time to explain that the members of our board at Southern Highlands are essentially running a multi-million-dollar corporation. And there are things that are very different that apply to that than some of the smaller communities. Both have important issues, both have important needs. By way of background, I did work in private practice as an attorney on HOA matters for approximately 9 years before coming to Olympia Group. So I have experience both in the legal world, the management world, and working for Olympia companies on the developer side. Thank you very much.
Angela, you just mentioned the size of your boards and that you started with that and just mentioned it again because you have your 7,000 rooftops. How large is, I mean, how big are we talking? Because we have also heard a bill that has 31 homes, Senator McGinnis's bill. So could you give us some idea about the budget, the kind of management challenges that you have with one that large?
Well, the challenge essentially with one that large is that you have 25,000 people. So when people disagree, we have a great number of groups. And some of the challenges that you have with that are, frankly, that it's a complex financial issue. There's a lot of money, and there needs to be protections. I think this bill puts some very important protections in place. And because you have volunteer homeowners that are doing this on their own time. I mean, these are great people, and I think often that's not recognized. These great people are volunteering their time to run a multi-million-dollar corporation. And some of the commentary that I provided is that in smaller communities, maybe, I think we heard testimony last week on the auditing issues. That's something that a very small community is different than a larger community. Cumulative voting, I think we heard testimony earlier today that cumulative voting can be a problem for smaller communities, but in larger communities, it allows smaller sub-associations to have a voice. We have sub-associations in our community with maybe 30, 40 homes up against other sub-associations that's 720 homes. So it is a necessary tool in larger communities to allow the smaller masses to have a voice. And I think that those are some of the things that we can vet through the process. But there's just a large difference in smaller versus larger communities.
Thank you. Please identify yourself, spell your name, and proceed.
I'm Donald Schaefer. That's S-C-H-A-E-F-E-R. I'm a homeowner in Sun City, Aliante, an age-qualified community consisting of 2,028 homes. I am also president of the HOA board for the association, and I am a member of the CAI LAC committee. I'm here today representing Sun City, Aliante exclusively. Our board and our community owners who have reviewed this bill that Senator Copening has put together are extremely grateful that she and her committee took the time to revisit in the, shall we say, non-legislative season this entire bill, because it impacts us greatly. Some of the comments that I have basically have been answered today. There have been some changes made and noted earlier on, especially in Section 4. But I do have want to let the committee know that in being pro for this bill, it makes transparent all of the financial actions of the board to the homeowners. And I think this is extremely important. We own the association, and the board only manages for its homeowners. And by being transparent with disclosures as to where our money is invested, how it's invested, how we do collections, when we turn somebody over to collection, makes it very clear for the homeowners. And I think that's a very, very important factor. The one area that I find that nobody has addressed, and maybe we're a little bit off base on it, but I would like to bring it up today, is in Section 4 on page 9, line 1 through 20, going over that area there. We have looked at this. If we have a number equal to or less nominees running for a board position, and in Sun City, Summerlin, we begin that process of nomination in January, as our fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th. We take 30 days to give the homeowners a chance to nominate somebody or to nominate themselves, turn in their resumes and everything. It then takes us almost a month to get the ballot printed up, to get everything out to the homeowners in order for them to be informed. We hold a candidate forum, etc. We open voting, and then at our annual meeting in May, we have the annual meeting, we have a board meeting. At the end of the board meeting, we announce who the winners are, and then we take and recess for a few minutes, and we reorganize the board. We go into a separate meeting where the board picks its own president, its own secretary, etc. If this bill goes through as it is, and on page 9 there, 1, it says the nominated candidates shall be deemed to be duly elected to the executive board. Well, if this was the case, in end of January, we only had, let's say, 3 people running for 3 positions. That would mean on February, the second Wednesday of February, they would be elected to the board. What happens is you've shortened the term of the existing board, and you've lengthened the term of the new incoming candidates for the executive board. It is not a major issue for those associations who have a 2-year term. But if I read correctly, for those associations that have a 3-year term, we would be in violation of the 3-year maximum limit. They would exceed that by 2 to 3 months. My suggestion and the suggestion of our board is that the language in this section, subsection B there, be changed to say that they would take their seats at the conclusion of the current board term. And I think this is consistent with how we elect our officials here. They're elected in November, they're seated in January. So you do end up with a lame duck board or board members, but I think the exposure is extremely limited. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, because I was just about to call your time, so thank you. You must have sensed that. Thank you very much. Any questions of this panel committee? Okay, we will now go to 3 opposed, Mr. Friedrich, Rana Goodman, and Chris Ferrari. And again, stay in that 5 minutes, please.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jonathan Friedrich, and it's spelled F-R-I-E-D-R-I-C-H. I, along with several others, have spent a great deal of time reviewing Senate Bill 174 and wish to present my testimony here today. I live in Las Vegas and have traveled here because I felt the need to speak to this committee in person because of some of the draconian changes to NRS 116 that are proposed in this bill. Allow me to digress for a moment and give you my observations on a much bigger issue, that of people's rights. Government cannot suppress people's rights without consequences. We are watching historic times in the Middle East and now in Wisconsin. There was a large rally by state and municipal employees on Monday in front of the state office building in Las Vegas. People are angry. CNN announced a survey last week stating Las Vegas is the 4th, I repeat, the 4th angriest city in America. I don't think that will improve our image as a tourist destination. It can only hurt us and our economy. Do we want riots and civil disobedience in our state? I don't, and I'm sure you don't. Over time, NRS 116 has become more and more homeowner unfriendly by chipping away at the very foundation of our freedoms guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. I get calls every day by very angry homeowners asking for help with all types of issues dealing with homeowner associations. This past Sunday, I got a call from a North Las Vegas police officer who alleges that she had been turned over to a collection agency when her assessments were not late. The collection agency just ignored her and added fees on top of fees. On Monday, an elderly couple called from Sun City Anthem who fell into the arbitration trap. Yes, the arbitration trap. Over the trimming of a tree. They were forced to use an NRED arbitrator through the ADR program. The arbitrator charged each side $4,000 over a tree. The leaves were falling into one neighbor's pool and backyard. That's outrageous. $4,000? HOA boards are allowed to hold hearings, which in many cases are nothing less than kangaroo courts, with people not allowed due process. I could go on, but I think you can understand why so many people are angry. There are almost 3,000 associations in this state, most in the Las Vegas area, many with elderly residents on fixed incomes. The never-ending tinkering and anti-homeowner changes to NRS 116 are hurting people and not helping them. No wonder that people are angry in Las Vegas. I find this bill oppressive and expanding the powers of the board and giving free rein to the few attorneys who practice HOA law and the collection companies who gouge owners with exorbitant fees. The changes in SB 174 will cause even more anger and outrage to our citizens. You, our legislators, need to hear these abused people's cries for help. You folks have the power to make the much-needed changes. This bill does not give justice or fairness to homeowners. And a couple of other things I wanted to bring out before I actually got into critiquing parts of the bill.
Mr. Friedrich,
Yeah.
5 minutes.
I haven't used it yet, have I?
No, but I was just saying, that
Yeah.
utilize it, and I know that you provided a lengthy testimony. We have it and are reviewing it, and I just want you to be able to maximize your time, so I just
Do
wanted
I
to
get
remind
credit for this time?
This is part of your, no, this is our time, we're chatting. But just because you want the
I'm
equity
trying.
among
I realize
homeowners.
there's a lot of people that want to speak on this.
Thank you
pro
so
and
very
con.
much, appreciate it.
When you buy into an HOA, you sign a contract. Now, when the state comes along and changes the terms or supersedes that contract, there's no approval by one party, the homeowner. You must realize that. It's a contract. Mr. Watkins stated that 71% of the homeowners are satisfied. What about the other 29%? Based upon Mr. Watkins' numbers, that means he stated 950,000 people live in homeowner associations. If you multiply that, and if I did the math right, times 29% who aren't happy, that's 275,000 people in this state that are not happy. One other thing I want to take out of context is that when Mr. Buckley stated the item on electronic format, I got a complaint from a homeowner that the CAM wanted $25 for a CD. $25. We need regulations. Briefly going into some of the items that I've commented on page 4, lines 1 to 38. This new section can be used as a tool by the HOA attorneys to run up large bills which the association will have to pay and then attempt to recoup using NRS 116.6, which forces the homeowner to pay. It can be used by the homeowner who wants to appeal an NRED decision to the CICC. Either way, the commission will become inundated with appeals. If these appeals are considered civil actions, then NRS 116.31088 requires notice to all homeowners. This will prove costly to everybody in time and money. Page 5, lines 20.
Mr. Friedrich,
Yeah.
we are working on overtime, so let this be, you're in about minute 7 now, excluding our conversation. So we'll listen to this one, and then we need to move on.
The item, I'll skip to the issue dealing with removal of elections. removal of board members. The new law extends it out to 120 days. That's 4 months. If you've got a bad board member, you want them off that board ASAP. On the issue dealing with criminal insurance, I'm in favor of that, but I don't feel that the homeowner association should have to pick up the cost. That is a cost of doing business by the CAM.
Mr. Friedrich,
Are we done?
we are done.
Did I get my credit for the time
You got
used?
way more credit, extra credit.
Next time I'm bringing a timer.
Well, actually, we're working from a computer. She's giving me Post-its because I'm listening and she's counting.
I do hope you will read my critique.
And we have your comments. Thank you for providing them in a timely fashion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please identify yourself, spell your name. We're going to, after we do the three, we'll take questions. Thank you, Senator. Please identify yourself.
Rana Goodman, spelled R-A-N-A, Goodman, Henderson, Nevada. I won't read my comments because I have submitted them to you, but based on what I've heard here today, I have some additional comments I'd like to make. What Mr. Watkins said about homeowners associations and how they're established, he is describing a utopia. I think when most of us buy into a homeowner association, we all buy in with the same idea. We want to live in a nice community. And basically today in most towns, most states, most cities, you're going to have to buy into a homeowner association if you want a nice community. And in that respect, I agree with him. The problem is the people that govern them. You're at the mercy of your board of directors. If you have a resident-friendly board, you've got what you want. It's run well, and that's wonderful. The problem is many homeowner associations are run by bully boards. It's a fact of life, and the complaints that we've received prove that. The 7,000 residents in Southern Highlands, we have in my community, Sun City Anthem, 7,144 homes, which is a little over 11,000 plus residents because we're a retirement community, no kids, gone, okay? I would say out of that many residents, the biggest majority suffer from a very bad case of apathy. They don't care. They want to play golf. They want to live a fabulous retired life. More power to them. Those of us that are involved, I would argue with that 71% are happy. A big portion are not happy. Not with the association, with the look of our community. It's beautiful. We're not happy with our governance. What I ask of you is how you coin your words in this bill. For example, page 18, section 8, line 31. You use the term, if the board offers. It's too soft. I would like it changed to the board shall offer. Because it's when you say if the board offers to send notices by electronic mail, if you have a bad board, they can say, no, we're not going to do that, and there's nothing a resident can do to have them do it, because the law gives them an out. On page 21, in section 9, page 21, line 32, you use the term misconduct. What is misconduct? How do you define it? Several years ago, there was a resident in my community that physically assaulted someone, knocked them down, really assaulted them. Yes, that's misconduct. Whatever punishment the board at that time deemed necessary, that was perfectly fine. But then there are other cases where somebody just asked for documents and the board in their community didn't want to give them up. The attorney decided, okay, we're going to fine you and use the paragraph in the law that deals with community expenses and hit them with, I believe it was $16,000? $8,000 in legal fees.
You have an exhibit of that.
Because that was what he deemed misconduct. So that word needs to be changed and defined. It's too loose. I mean, how do you really define misconduct? To me, misconduct is when my kid mouths off to me. You know, I mean, you need a better definition. What we need from you, our legislators, is a way that the homeowners can hold our boards accountable. It's not the homeowner association per se, it's the people governing us. our first line of governance is our board, but our line of reason is you people. If we have ambiguous terms in the law, where do we go? And then the last thing I wanted to say is about the paragraph that deals with residents, what was the terminology, where residents can, not the crime insurance, it's talking to the boards, retaliation against executive boards. Okay. If a resident is retaliated against by the board, we go to the ombudsman's office, you get nowhere for at least 3 months. That's just the way it is. Then you take it to the real estate division, then you go into mandatory arbitration. But if this law passes as it is, and a resident is deemed to retaliate against the board by having an argument with them, or whatever the board deems is retaliation against them, they can do anything they want. And I'll quote my president, which I said in my testimony just last week to you. Our board president said, this board can do whatever we want. And they can. Thank you for
very
your
much.
time.
And we gave you overtime, too. Mr. Ferrari.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
That's okay.
I know that Senator Chris Ferrari, for the record, I know Senator Breeden had questions, Madam Chair, and my comments vary pretty dramatically from those pertaining strictly to the HOA, so I didn't know if you wanted to entertain that at this point or not.
We'll let you do, and then we can take questions from all the members of the
Super.
committee.
Thank you. Again, Chris Ferrari, for the record, Ferrari, here today representing CHAMP, an acronym for the Concerned Homeowner Association Members PAC. I first also want to commend Senator Copening and Mr. Buckley. I know they've literally spent hundreds, if not thousands, of hours going through this issue. We've met with Senator Copening numerous times. We've met with Mr. Buckley as well. He's kind enough to come and speak with us as well. So we do sincerely appreciate their efforts. CHAMP is a broad-based coalition of homeowners, consumer credit counselors, labor union members, minority chambers of commerce, the NAACP, legal aid organizations, realtors, builders, and numerous others. And just for clarification, there seems to be a line in the sand kind of drawn today with those that are pro-HOA and anti-HOA. We're not in any way anti-HOA. We're trying to get our primary concern is to make sure when fees are assessed based on the non-payment of assessments, they're getting the money to fix those communities and keep them maintained for their residents. My appearance today is not in opposition to the bill, as I signed in on to the full extent. We have concerns in opposition to sections 12 and 15 of this bill. Based on Mr. Buckley's comments about potentially striking the concerns we had in section 12, subsection 6, that would alleviate our concerns in section 12, so we just focus on section 15. We've got, my packet is this one here. It's kind of a funny one with the exhibits listed, so I know you've got about 500 of those up there. After a home has been foreclosed upon, Fannie Mae will pay up to 6 months of back-due HOA assessments for common expenses. So if an HOA assessment is $50 a month, they'll pay $300, okay? Now that amount may include collection fees, but they will not pay any more than that, and I think that's a delineation or discrepancy that we have with the comments made by Mr. Buckley. That is evidenced in Exhibit A in the bottom 2 right-hand boxes of your exhibit. We have also had conversations with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's counsel to confirm that that is indeed the case. I'd like to briefly run the committee members through the foreclosure process so this example can be better illustrated. HOAs currently have the ability to foreclose for past due assessments through Nevada's non-judicial foreclosure process. Prior to foreclosure, an HOA resident who missed payments is sometimes, in as little as 2 months, turned over to an HOA's collection or management company. This results in what former Assembly Speaker Barbara Buckley, in our discussions on this matter, refers to as imaginary fees being imposed. I think we all know somebody who's been impacted by these egregious fees, and that is the plight of our request to you. Exhibit B in my big ugly packet here is a sample payoff demand from one of the HOA collectors supporting this bill for services purportedly rendered to collect past due assessments. While it contains a lot of imaginary fees, it's not unique, it's the norm. I'd be more than happy to provide the committee members with hundreds or literally thousands of examples of that nature. In this particular example, you'll see that the 2 past due assessments are each in the amount of $39.12 for a total amount owed of $78.24. How much would that demand letter be based on that? $3,322.24. To be fair in this example, we'll deduct the demand and transfer fees from the total, as these are relevant charges, so the new total is just under $3,000. Again, this past due amount is $78, and we're talking about almost $3,000. That's the core of our argument here. That means 2.7% of the money demanded will find its way to the HOA. 97.3% of that money will go to the collector. So I just ask that who's winning in that situation? That money's sitting there. It's not going back to the HOA to fix their issues. It's sitting there. In the next example, which is Exhibit C, you'll see a demand issued via email at 9:08 a.m. It's just kind of a little email here, demanding payment of a demand by 1 p.m. that same day. I would doubt that if any of us received that kind of demand this morning, we'd be able to get it paid by 1 p.m. Because the 4-hour demand wasn't met, the fee went up $2,000, a $2,000 fee increase in 4 hours. Again, and that money's not going back to the HOA to get their problem fixed.
Mr. Ferrari, you need to wrap up.
I sure will, Madam Chair. Thank you. Just wanted to point out in our Exhibit D, in contrast, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac on a non-judicial foreclosure pay a total for that same process of $600, and they actually complete a foreclosure, unlike the previous examples.
And committee, you'll find that on page 3 of Exhibit D.
One of the members of Senator Kopening's working group testified in previous legislative sessions that out of thousands of files opened by his HOA collection company, only 2 homes were foreclosed upon. That seems to be fairly consistent in the process, so the question is, why are those notices sent? Thank you. Almost done here, Madam Chair.
And you are on overtime big time.
And I greatly appreciate it. In closing, Senate Bill 174, those sections, Section 12, Sub 6, and Section 15, would make it harder for families in Nevada to buy a home. It'd make it harder for families in Nevada to sell a home. And it would make it easier for their HOA collection companies to do business as usual. At the Chair's pleasure, our coalition is happy to provide comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, committee, of any of the members on this panel? Senator Breeden, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only question right now for Mr. Friedrich was, you mentioned that homeowners contact you. Yes. If I remember correctly, you said you were an advocate. You're not with an organization, or are you?
Mr. Friedrich, turn on your mic, please.
Sorry, Jonathan Friedrich again, through the chair, to Senator Breeden. Through personal disputes with my homeowners association and having been run through the mill, I've become an advocate for unhappy homeowners. If I may, please.
Mr. Friedrich, please be brief. No. This is a process.
It's a visual.
Yeah.
I'll be glad to share this with anyone who would like to see it. These are complaints that have been emailed to me by unhappy homeowners. It ranges from, I have a jungle gym in my backyard, they want me to take it down, to the color of my driveway paint does not match the exact shade that I submitted.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to know if you were with an organization.
There's no organization. It's just a loosely group of people trying to fight for homeowners' rights and level the playing field.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions of this panel, committee? Okay. Oh, Senator Gustafson, I passed too quickly, didn't I? Please proceed.
Just glanced over here. I just wasn't quick enough. Catch your eye. Thank you, Madam Chair. I direct my question to Mr. Ferrari, I believe, on the exorbitant fees that people are being charged. And I'm just wondering if Fannie Mae or whoever isn't going to pay these fees, who usually winds up paying them the fees?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Senator Gustafson. That's a great question. I think that's one that all of you, I know Senator Kopening and everybody else is concerned with here. What's typically happening in that process is that and that's our biggest concern, that becomes a super priority lien, a lot of those fees, and what they're looking to do in Section 15 is incorporate more of those fees under that super priority. So as many realtors or others can tell you, that note is stuck on that house, regardless of who owns it. So when the next buyer comes in to purchase that home, they're not going to find out until the very end of the process, through a demand letter to the collection agency, how much those fees are. So what we found in numerous examples, including from the consumer credit counselors, somebody goes in to buy a home, they get all the way to the end, they're approved for their federal loan, you can't finance that amount. So in numerous cases like this one here, you got $78 is now $3,000 for a lot of people. They can't come out of pocket with $3,000. So that is stopping real estate transactions throughout the state and making it a much larger macro issue, because until we get rid of that excess inventory in our market here in Nevada, people can't start building again, and those houses just won't transact.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to the right, Senator Breeden and Senator Copening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so if we're talking about a bank-owned home, why isn't the bank responsible for paying for those fees, since they've induced the foreclosure?
You know, I've Senator Breeden, Chris Ferrari for the record, through you, Madam Chair. I would probably defer that question, Mr. Buckley, or we've got a couple other folks from CHAMP, a couple of realtor and attorneys who might come up and be able to better address that and give you a better answer to that question. Thank you.
Senator Copening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Ferrari, you are aware that we do have a collections bill coming. I know we've talked extensively about it, so I do want us to remain genuine in our conversations and our testimony. As many people know, the bill will almost exactly mirror what the Commission for Common Interest Communities and Condominium Hotels put into regulations that are now on hold. We wanted to codify it in law to make sure that these egregious fees would never happen again to a homeowner. That being said, and we know that those fees would be capped then at under $2,000, and if it was only one letter that was sent out, there would be limits on how much they could charge for that one letter, not $300, maybe $50 for the time that it took to generate it. So my question is, when it comes to that point when you're at a foreclosure, somebody has to pay those collection costs. Right now, in my bill and in that collections bill, super priority will be given to collections costs because it is a cost of the association. In many cases, they have already paid those costs when they have contracted with a collections agency. It doesn't happen always this way, but in some situations they have paid every month, and 2 years down the road, the home finally forecloses, and you've got, let's say for the sake of argument, the maximum $2,000 collection fees, and then if it was the assessments that were $100 and 9 months worth, then the association gets the $900, and then they may be also owed, those fees. Sorry to make this so long, but my question is, who do you think should pay those collection costs? To my understanding, it's CHAMP's belief that it should be passed on to all the homeowners of that association. So one person's bad debt, or it could be several, in an association would be passed on to all the homeowners. If it isn't, it's either passed on, the person who pays it would be the bank if they own it, the investors, which we all know that CHAMPS was started by investors, to investors. It would be paid by them, and then they could recoup it when they flip the home, or it would be paid by the new homeowner that buys it. So that's my question. Just want to know who should pay those fees if we remove super priority out of it, which I understand is what you're asking.
Mr. Eaton, can you join me at the table, please? Madam Chair, if it be okay, I'd like to have Mr. Eaton join me at the table. But to Senator Copening's point, through you, Madam Chair, Chris Ferrari for the record, I certainly appreciate and want to work with you on that bill. And our coalition, while I appreciate the investor angle that you're implying, this is an issue that, again, is impacting folks. It's a very unique issue because it's bringing everybody together. We appreciate absolutely what you're doing, and we agree with the cap. Obviously, we're going to work with you on that and try to pass something that we believe is reasonable and benefits all parties. But as I've conveyed to others, when you're working with folks like legal aid centers all the way to bankers, we know there's some middle ground, and we believe that it's not in the best interest of those HOA residents to have those exorbitant fees being paid without them getting any additional money. So we do look forward to working with you on that bill, and I'll have Mr. Eaton directly address your question. Thank you.
Mr. Eaton, please identify yourself, spell your name for the record, and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Joseph Eaton, JOSEPHEATON. I'm a real estate broker, and I have my office in Las Vegas. If I could answer the chair the question through Senator Copening. Those fees in the context of the super priority are not paid by the purchaser who acquires a property from the bank, should the bank be the successful bidder at a non-judicial foreclosure sale. Sometimes those fees are paid by investors. But what happens, given the language that's proposed, the amendments that are proposed, what would happen is that those fees would be included within the super priority. They're not currently included within the super priority. This would cause them to be included within the super priority. And what would be done is, in effect, to shift the payment for those fees from the community members to the general public as a whole, because that's who's going to pick up those costs in the context of a foreclosure. Those fees are going to have to be paid by the bank when the bank takes title to the property, or an investor when the investor takes title to the property. But this is not a case where a bad or delinquent homeowner is having to step up and pay the fees that they should have paid. This is not a question about shifting the cost to someone who should have borne the cost. It's a question of whether those people who can exercise restraint over the collectors and who enter into those contracts are going to be forced to bear the cost when they don't, or whether those costs are going to be shifted to the public as a whole. And members of a community are in a much better position to exercise restraint over the collectors that they retain.
Thank you, Mr. Eaton. And I think we're going to need to get some experts involved, maybe not right now, but to my understanding, collection costs are currently a part of the super priority. And what you guys would like is to have that removed. So we're just going current law. But let's not get into the debate. We need to clear this, because clearly there's a lot of people out there that and we know it is happening, because when an investor or a homeowner buys a home, they are responsible for the super priority of those collection costs are then paid to the collection company. So we know they are part. So,
well, Senator, there's litigation over that, and there's a dispute that's ongoing, and so it's not a settled question at this point.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Thank you.